Today's lesson is on equinoxes and solstices, and we're covering this lesson on Thursday, October the 3rd, and Friday, October the 4th. So let's begin. Have you noticed that our days are already they're changing, they're getting shorter, so it's beginning to get dark earlier, and that's directly related to our seasons. So let's take a look. Here are two times when the sun's rays strike the equator directly. These are known as equinoxes. So when you see the word equinox, you should think equal, which is exactly what's happening with our nighttime and daytime. There are 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. So you can see here. So let's draw our equator now, and let's look at the northern hemisphere. So here, the Earth is tilted away from the sun, so we know that's winter. Here, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, which is summer, but let's look in between. Here the Earth is tilted neither towards or away from the sun. So take a look. Here is away, here is towards, but in these two, during March and September, it's neither towards or away. So we have equal time of day and night. There are two times when the sun is at its greatest distance from the equator, and these are known as solstices. So here, like we've talked about before, you can see the Earth is tilted away from the sun, so we're in winter. And here, the Earth is tilted towards the sun, so there's summer. So let's talk a little bit more about each of these solstices. So let's start by taking a look at our diagram. Here's our equator. The northern hemisphere is tilted away, so there's winter. The southern hemisphere is tilted towards, so there's summer. The winter solstice, so we're looking at the northern hemisphere. So winter solstice takes place around December the 21st or 22nd, depending on the year, because we know our calendar varies a little bit from year to year. At this time, the sun is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn here. So the northern hemisphere is tilted away. Now let's take a look again, but let's pay close attention to our daylight and our nighttime. What's going on at the poles? So here, let's look at the North Pole. It's in darkness, so it's nighttime. Let's take a look at the South Pole. The South Pole is in daylight. So, like we already said, winter is north of the equator in the northern hemisphere. Summer is south of the equator. So this marks the shortest day and the longest night of the year. Think about what winter is like. The days are really short. It gets dark really early, and the nights are long. At this time, like I just said, so take a look again at the North Pole. There are 24 hours of dark at the North Pole, 24 hours of daylight at the South Pole. So we said what causes this is that the sun strikes the Earth at the Tropic of Capricorn. And let's draw our equator again. So we know our equator is very close to this line. So here's our Tropic of Capricorn below the equator. But we know the Tropic of Capricorn is not a real line, it's just imaginary. So if we actually went to this place on Earth, if we went to Australia, we wouldn't really see a line. It's imaginary. Now let's look at summer solstice. So again, let's analyze our diagram here. Here's our equator. The northern hemisphere tilted towards. Southern hemisphere tilted away. Summer solstice takes place around June 21st or 22nd. Again, that day varies according to the year and the calendar. So as you can see here, this time the sun's rays strike directly over the Tropic of Cancer. So the southern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. Now looking at our day and night again. Let's look at the North Pole. This time in summer solstice, the North Pole is in daylight. The South Pole is in the dark in the nighttime. So, winter, south of the equator. Summer, north of the equator. So this marks the longest day and shortest night. So think about your summer days. They're really long. It gets dark really late at night. You have long days. And at this time, like we just said, 24 hours of daylight at the North Pole. And then look at your picture. 24 hours of dark at the South Pole. So here's our map of the world again. This time, summer solstice is caused by, we said, the sun strikes the earth at the Tropic of Cancer, which is above the equator. So there's our equator. Tropic of Cancer is above the equator, which is an imaginary line. So let's review. Here, is the earth tilted away or towards? Look at the northern hemisphere. It's tilted towards the sun, so we're in summer. Look at this one. Is it tilted away or towards? The northern hemisphere is tilted away, so we're in winter. So here's a blank diagram of all 4 seasons. So let's see if we can figure this out. Let's start here. Draw our equator. And there's our equator separating northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere is tilted away, so that's winter. Now let's take a look at this one. There's our equator. Northern hemisphere is tilted towards, so that's summer. And then we said our in-between is spring and fall, but how do we figure out which one is which? Let's look at our direction of the arrow. So which way is the earth orbiting or revolving around the sun? What season comes after winter? Spring. So here is spring. There's our summer. Next is fall. We said spring and fall were equinox, so they have equal amounts of day and night. So you can see from the diagram, this entire side of the world is having night at this time. And then here, if we look at fall, this picture represents daytime on this side of the world, so equal amounts of day and night. So here's that diagram again, filled in. There's our winter solstice, directly across summer solstice. spring equinox, and autumn equinox. So you can use this diagram to fill in the blank one on your notes. So the North Pole is excluded from daylight during when? Look at the diagram. Here's the North Pole. It's excluded from daylight, so there is no daylight during winter solstice. The North Pole has 0 hours of daylight. The South Pole has 24 hours of daylight. Okay? The North Pole is in total daylight when? So take a look at the diagram. Here's our North Pole in daylight. So the North Pole is in total daylight in summer solstice. At that time, the North Pole has 24 hours of daylight. The South Pole has 0 hours of daylight. So here's another picture. Let's see if we can figure this one out. Is it summer or winter solstice for the northern hemisphere? So here's daylight. So I know the sun is on this side. So there's my sun. So let's look at the northern hemisphere. Here's our equator. Northern hemisphere, is it tilted away or towards? Here it's tilted towards the sun. So, summer solstice. So remember, we're looking at northern hemisphere, tilted towards, so it's summer solstice. This question we've asked a couple of times. We ask in lab, and we've discussed it a little bit, but we've never said the answer. So, what would happen if the Earth rotated around the sun without a tilt? The answer is there would be no seasons at all. So write that explanation on your notes and draw a picture to illustrate. If the Earth rotated without a tilt, there would be no seasons at all. Okay, next we completed several review questions to kind of begin getting us ready for the test, so let's look at those. The time it takes for the Earth to make one revolution is 1 year. Remember, we said one trip around the sun equals 1 year. Okay, next question. The name of the day that is the shortest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. Okay, well, when you look at your answers, you should automatically see E and F are not correct, so you can automatically eliminate those. So let's look at A and B. We said equinox is equal amount of day and night. So that can't be the shortest day of the year, so those are both wrong. So we're between C and D, summer solstice and winter solstice. So remember, we said during the winter, are the days short or long? In the winter, the days are shorter. It gets dark earlier, so the correct answer is D, winter solstice. So that should make this next one easy. The name of the day that is the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, C, summer solstice. Remember, we said summer days are long. It gets dark later. Next question, the name of the day that is equal day and equal night. Equinox, remember, equal. Equinox, equal. Seasons happen because, let's look at the answers. Tilt of the Earth. The Earth revolves around the sun. The Earth is round. The Earth is closer to the sun sometimes and farther away sometimes. All of the above, none of the above. So we discussed this in detail. Distance does not create seasons. So D, automatically you know that one is not correct. Correct answer is because of the tilt of the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees. A is the correct answer. And this concludes our lesson on equinoxes and solstices, and also concludes our unit on seasons.